All right, living in an RV surrounded by fields on two sides, like the one behind me goes all the way around there, goes back quite a ways in every direction. A lot of mice. Trap them, no, not that big a deal. Just gotta make sure everything's put in mouse-proof containers and keep the traps always set. Get 3 or 4 a week usually. But I found a foolproof way of getting all the mice out of the RV. The only problem with it is I almost died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Now, I wasn't trying to get rid of the mice that way, but last year I heated with this guy, and it does okay. It has the pilot setting, which doesn't really heat, and then it has low and high. Well, low is either a lot of the winter, low is too cold and high is too hot, so I wanted something with some more adjustability. And the thermocoupler went bad in this one, so I need to replace the thermocoupler. But when I was building my greenhouse, which we'll do a later video discussing the greenhouse, my parents got me this guy to heat the greenhouse with. So I put it in the RV, and it used up all the air, all the oxygen. Guess started producing carbon monoxide, and apparently my year-old carbon monoxide detector didn't work. I spent Thanksgiving, felt tired, a little lightheaded, had a headache for like a week and a half or so. Spent a bunch of time at my girlfriend's house over Thanksgiving weekend. Felt a lot better. Come home that Sunday, hanging out in the RV, felt tired and lightheaded again. Got up the next morning, I felt awful. I'm like, okay, what's the difference between my house and her house? It's been that way for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Well, this guy. So I went, bought a new carbon monoxide detector. As soon as I plugged it in, it maxed out. That's no good. So I just modified this guy for a cold air intake, because apparently, because RVs are so small, heaters are supposed to have a cold air intake. The factory one that I can't run off the solar has a cold air intake. So I cut a hole in there. Watch the video and see what I did, and hopefully I don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning once we get this thing fired back up. Stay tuned. In order to add a cold air intake to the back of my propane stove, or heater here, I need to drill this 4¼ inch hole. I want it as low as possible so it can suck the cold air right into the back of the fire there. But I need to make sure the center hole here, this is taking too long. I need to add a cold air intake to the back of this stove here, or propane heater. And I want it as low as possible so it can suck the air straight into the back of the fire. So I need to cut this 4¼ inch hole, and what I want to do is I want it centered, and I want to make sure this, wherever I mark this center hole, is in sheet metal. So run this Sharpie around the outside, that'll give me the center of that hole. Now we want to drill a small hole there to mark it for the next step, but so we want to use a hole smaller than our arbor for our hole saw, and then drill this out. Right, now on to the next step, or the heater put back on the wall of the RV. Now I gotta mark this hole into the wall. Fortunately, the impact driver won't fit in there. So what we're gonna do, stick the drill bit in, turn it by hand a few times. Hopefully that'll scratch up the wall. Yep, right there's our little scratch. Mark that with the Sharpie so we can find it again. drill bit back in the impact driver. And if you're using an impact driver to drill holes, make sure you use impact rated drill bits. You don't want to break them. Now we got to drill a hole all the way through to the outside of the RV. I can see light through. That must mean we're all the way through. And apparently they use pink insulation. Now let's start drilling the hole from the outside. I lost the button. There's the pause button. Alright, here's where the drill bit came through from the inside. And before we drill that hole, I want to explain to you what hole saws are and how they work. First off, this is a big honking hole saw, so it needs the bigger arbor. So to install the bigger arbors, it has these pins. So you got to retract this. Then you thread the arbor into the hole saw. You line the pins up with the holes and then tighten this nut back down. That adds extra support to the center of the arbor when you're drilling this big hole. And then I had to go borrow my dad's big hammer drill. We're gonna turn the hammer off because we don't want to pounding on this. The hammer's for drilling through masonry, concrete, bricks, stuff like that. But we need the big 1/2 inch drive. I have a little 1/2 inch drive Ryobi, but I don't know where it's at. And there's a lot of weight swinging around on the end of this, so be careful. Make sure you run it on your slow setting. And then when you buy a hole saw, if you're going to be using it a lot, real nice hole saws are so much better than these cheap Chinesium ones. But since I'm only going to be drilling a few holes with this, probably ever, cheap's good enough. Because this is a really expensive hole saw. I got like 40 bucks in the arbor and the saw, and that's a cheap one. And then it's 4 1/4. So if you multiply 4 1/4 by pi, you get over 13 inches around the circumference of this thing. So not only do we want to go slow, but we want to use some oil too. Especially with this Chinese one. Cutting oil works well, but I got 3-in-1 oil, so we're going to use 3-in-1 oil. One of my goals for the near future is to buy a lot more oil, so I have a better selection of oil. All right, so we line this up with our hole and start slowly drilling. All right, that's more torque than I thought it was. Let me grab the helper handle. While I figure out how to install this, I'm going to stop the camera. I'll get the handle on and then we'll start drilling. Alright, got the helper handle installed so I can get a better grip on it. And I'm standing on one of those black totes with the yellow lid. Not exactly the best step ladder, but that's what I got. So that's what we're going to do. It's so much easier with the handle. And we not quite through. All right, we're all the way through. Now, be careful with that piece of metal. It's awfully hot, and we gotta pull all that insulation out. So let me put my gloves on. Grab a knife and we'll pull the insulation out. You don't want to just grab a hold of the insulation and pull it out unless you want to pull it out of your tire wall. So I love these little knives like these for you can get in deeper to cut. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Hopefully I don't get that fiberglass all over me. I'm allergic to it. I'm gonna go around the inside, drill a hole in the inside, drill the hole on the stove, and then we'll get to installing the vent. Alright, the chunk of the interior wall, this veneer stuff, is kind of stuck in there. That's what these holes along the side are for. And there's also holes on the back side, so you can get in there and pop things out. If you're cutting through something really thick, so it's most of the way through the depth of the hole saw, and you can't push it out because it's too tight, you can drill a hole or put screws in it and then grab a hold of the screws and help pull it out. Alright, time to get the other hole drilled. Where's the button? I keep losing the button. Here. I'll just push it on the camera. I screwed up there and drilled through this before measuring. This is a dryer bed I'm going to use for an intake. So what we're going to do is put this back on the wall, jump into the hole, and then put the tape measure through so we see how far this, and then we'll know where to cut this off. Sorry the cinematography is not exactly the best on this video, but you get what you paid for, and this is a free video. So we're going to go in there, and we're pretty much exactly 4.5 inches there. But you got to remember, we got to make sure we clear these ribs. So the ribs are at 4 3/4. I'm going to cut it off at 4 inches, and then we can make it shorter later. To drill our hole in the back of the heater, make sure everything's nice and tight. And the words of Jamie Heineman from Mythbusters fame, when in doubt, lubricate. It's kind of chilly out and I want to wear my gloves, but those gloves don't have enough dexterity to do anything. And Menards quit selling my favorite gloves. I had to find a new favorite glove. Hopefully it's just a supply chain thing. But when they come back or I find a new glove I really like that fits me well and has good dexterity and everything, go buy a bunch of them. Alright, because we got this hole here, we want to make sure we go pretty slow, and also we don't want to hit the parts of the heater on the inside. Alright, this thing's gonna want to walk around on me. I don't know how much of that last clip got cut off, ran out of memory on the phone. But what I was saying is careful with the edges, they're going to be sharp and hot. And I said ignore the I'm ignoring the warning labels, but that doesn't mean you should too. If you do something like this and carbon monoxide yourself or burn down your house or something like that, don't blame me. I told you not to do it. Besides, you can't, even if you wanted to sue me, I ain't got any money. Now let's lower this camera. That's why I live in an RV. And show you how we're gonna cut this. Dryer vent we're gonna use as a vent into the cold air return, our cold air intake. So we said we're gonna cut it at 4 inches. Well, this hole's right about 4 inches, so we don't want to use that end. We're going to cut it a little bit longer than 4 inches. And we're going to set the Sharpie through the hole here. And we're just going to turn. If it's too long, we can always make it shorter later. And I dropped the cap to my Sharpie. But anyway, that's the line we got. 10 snips would be a great tool to cut along that line, but I don't own 10 snips, but I do own a box cutter. So we're going to use a box cutter to cut along that line. good pair of utility scissors would probably work well too. And I have my hand in here for stability. Make sure you don't cut through your hand. Not only does it hurt, you get blood everywhere you gotta clean up. And it takes you longer to get through your project. Alright, that seam is too tough for the knife. Let's see how well Leatherman scissors work. You got a fair bit of the way through. I could use the Leatherman scissors all the way around, but I don't want to do too much to dull them up. Even though this pair is broken, it needs to be returned under the warranty. Alright, let me find my Sharpie cap and we'll get this in. I found my Sharpie cap. It was in my pocket. Alright, let's get this put in. Quick before we put this in, this is a dryer vent. So it's designed so when the dryer turns on, the hot air will push, if I can grab a hold of it, will push this flap open, and then the wind can't blow the cold air into the house. But we want the cold air to come inside. So let's see if we can't get that bad boy out of there. Get that out, get the plastic to get out of the way. See if I can turn, what happens if I turn these little tabs so they fit through the hole. That was easy. Taking the little, straighten the little tabs out, let me pull little holes through the tabs. And yes, I don't 100% know what I'm doing. I'm kind of making it up as I go, if you can't tell already. But that's an important skill to have, be able to figure out things on your own. A lot of people don't have that skill anymore. And if you don't keep practicing it, you'll lose it too. Just like I keep losing the button to hit pause with. Here's the moment of truth. The heater's on the other side. Let's see if we can get this thing shoved in and all the way through to the heater. That might have worked. Let me take you off the mothership, also known as a tripod. Woo! Up close nose vision. Alright, get out the flashlight here. Get the warning. More warning labels. That's set inside there nicely. I don't know how well you can see that. And then, look at that. It comes right through perfectly. We don't have to trim anything. And that should bring the nice cold air right here where the flames come. So the only thing left to do is get this thing all put back together, get it fired up, see if it works, and then we'll figure out how to caulk this on there, because of these ribbings it's a little big all the way around, but we'll come up with something. Well, it seems to be working, so let's go to work. We'll clean up my mess, then go to work and see what the carbon monoxide detector says when I get home. hopefully we're good and I can sleep in here tonight without suffocating. Thank you for joining me on the journey to use God's gifts to grow His kingdom, prepare for the future, and live a better life. Have a great day and God bless.